Hi, my name is Nathan Sigworth. I'm the CEO and co-founder of PharmaCCX. We leverage technology to help pharma and payers negotiate and manage complex market access agreements. Today is our second installment of Contingently Committed, our video series, where we interview experts in our field to learn about the latest advancements at the intersection of technology, finance, and pharma. Today, we're going to speak with my co-founder, Richard Bergstrom, who also happens to be the vaccine coordinator for Sweden, and my good friend. So Richard, good to see you today. Where are you today? Where in the world are you?
Good to see you, Nathan. No, I'm actually in Stockholm. I'm at the Ministry of Health here. I'm getting ready for negotiations this afternoon with some of the vaccine producers, which I do as part of the European Commission negotiations. Good to see you, Nathan.
Great. Good to see you as well. So how did you and I get started working together?
Yeah, I remember we met. It in a way feels like yesterday, but it wasn't. But we were in Bangkok, and you can figure out that this was a few years ago when we could still travel around the world. And we were both invited by the World Bank, had a panel on supply chain challenges around the world. And Nathan was at that time living in India. He had his own company, PharmaCCX, and he was working on serial numbers on packs so that patients could verify that the drug they took was not a counterfeit. And in fact, I was working on the same. I was in Brussels at the time. I was head of the European Industry Associations. I was the spokesperson and chief lobbyist for pharma in Brussels. And we were working on a system in Europe, similar, but bigger scale, obviously, where we would be checking that packs were not counterfeit. So we found ourselves on the same panel.
That's right.
And we became friends, and we kept talking. And we stayed in contact, and when I was ready to do other things than being in Brussels, we were chatting, Nathan and I, and you were also very curious, Nathan. You were also asking me, what's going on? How is this working? What's happening? And I've been talking to you about this pain, this headache of access to particularly combination therapies, when Europe has an elaborate system of almost formulaic system. Formulas to calculate the value based on health economics, socioeconomics, cost effectiveness, we call it. And how do you fit two products into that formula? Yeah. So it was something I was very preoccupied with. And then you introduced me to some very interesting people on the East Coast, including a friend of yours from Wall Street, who said, well, you need to learn from the financial markets. You need some technical solution for this. And that's how it started. And yeah. We took that idea back. I took it back to Europe, where we have single payers, as we call them. So it's much easier in Europe, and this health economic stuff is well established. So I tested it. So I went back and forth between pharma and payers and said, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And so on. And the feedback was phenomenal, and since then we're working on it.
Yeah, and then we put together a team. So last week I interviewed Armin, who's our chief technology officer for this series. And what is it about this team that you find special?
Yeah, first it's truly international. We have Armin, who comes from Armenia, where we actually have a little team as well of sort of back office, cool programmer people. Okay, we have a few Americans, we have people from Europe. I think it's very, very diverse, deliberately. I've obviously come from pharma. I'm a pharma animal. But we have people that come from tech, from hedge funds, from startups. Peter Rice, our COO, he's built some very successful startup companies, and that's sort of a skills that are very much needed for us. So really assemble a great team, and I think the thing that really motivates us all is that we're solving a problem. No one else is doing this. People don't get access to their medicines. Even if payers are willing to pay, they're stuck in this model. So it's a lose-lose-lose. That's because there's no solution for it, right? I think that's what we're all passionate about, is that we're solving this problem, which ultimately is about people's lives.
Yeah. So how has COVID-19 affected what we do?
More than I'd expected. First, I thought problems will not go away. Some things will not go away. I mean, obviously, if you're in the hotel business or hospitality business or traveling, clearly you're affected. If you're in some digital services, you're affected in a positive way because you see surge in demand, just the providers of these VC systems, by the way, okay? But I'd expected that pharma would be less impacted, pharma and payers less impacted because, things go on and medicines are developed and they have to be priced and so on. But we've actually been affected. And one reason for that is that many of the people that work on innovative solutions, new ways of dealing with market access, with pricing. Guess what they're working on? Vaccines.
Well, and I think
so. Here in Sweden,
this is all about if you can't beat them, join them, right? You got to roll with it, right? I mean, even yourself. Why don't you describe of your
exactly? I just take an example of Sweden here. So more than half of the people we were working with to implement this in Sweden had to drop everything they were working on because now they're doing vaccine coordination. Yeah. They're my colleagues doing this at the regional level in Sweden, and it's the same elsewhere. The top people in regulatory agencies and ministries of health across Europe are now pulled into this. And I'm now working with old friends of mine that I've known for a very, very long time across Europe. So what I do is that I work for the Swedish government part-time in making sure that the country has access to vaccines, and that's done through the European Union. The European Commission is negotiating. So I'm on the negotiation team, me and 6 more people. So we do all these negotiations. So I, as you know, Nathan, I find it kind of funny that I'm a payer right now.
You spent your whole career in pharma, and now you've joined the other side for a bit.
Yeah, but for me, as you know me, it's not that difficult because I've always taken pride in that you have to understand the other side. I don't really like the term side, but okay, there are different interests here. Okay, pharma and payers, but they have to work together, just like you work with the regulators. You have to respect the other party. You can't wake up every morning hating your customer. No, you have to respect them and like them even, even if you disagree from time to time. So now being a payer is amazing because I see, how this works and can I sort of apply my experience from the other side. So it's truly a rewarding experience. It's taking a bit of my time, but it's also a great honor to be part of this. I call it the Apollo program of pharma, the life science industry. Look at this mobilization with public and private, both in US stateside with the Operation Warp Speed and BARDA. Here in Europe, we have the joint procurement that the Commission is doing. Amazing. Companies are collaborating. Like I was just announced this morning, Sanofi is going to help Pfizer with manufacturing their vaccine to boost production. It's one of the finest moments of this industry, I think, including the public engagement.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we as a company and you specifically can find a way to help in this time. I mean, this is a moment where we all have to pull together and do unexpected things and take on responsibilities. And I'm very proud, that you can help in this way. What are you learning, as you're involved in these pharma vaccine negotiations, right? As these COVID vaccine negotiations, what are you learning that about negotiation, and how might that be pulled into some of our work in the post-COVID world in oncology and other areas like that?
Also, it may sound obvious, but you really have to rally around one common goal.
Yeah.
Again, the analogy with the space program is interesting. I visited Cape Canaveral a few years ago with my family, and I was reminded about the fact that when President Kennedy was asked the question, he said, "Why are we going to the moon?" Because we can go to the moon. We're going to the moon. That's the target. Now, in this case, it's a virus. Okay,
we have to,
and that's where I think that what will come out of this, I think, is a realization from all sides that if you clearly identify a clear target, so if you have a zero vision, for instance, for mortality in cancer, really articulate that, we could do the same. But it's just that there hasn't been that kind of focus. And also the fact that maybe sometimes the companies should not see themselves as competitors, working side by side. Like right now, I don't think these companies don't see themselves as competitors because there's such a demand. In fact, in cancer, it's the same. It's insatiable demand, you know? So you have to get it right. You have to get the price right. You have to get the volumes right, the mix right. And there's a role for everybody.
Yeah.
All these medicines are needed. So I think that's something that we can help foster, I think, Nathan, in brokering. We have these cool tools we've developed, but essentially we are brokering in between the pharma and payers, and doing that truly in a neutral way, not taking sides.
That's great. We saw that sort of collaboration in the past. I mean, in this pandemic, we saw that with the HIV crisis. And I think we've seen remarkable acceleration in the development of vaccines. Where do you see the management of deals and market access negotiations headed in the next 5 years? What do you think we'll look back on and can't believe we used to do in pharma, vaccines, all this?
I think looking back, we will think, first of all, it's crazy that there's not more cooperation, for instance, in clinical development between various companies, that they're not doing clinical trials together, right? Also the fact that we still don't really have good feedback loop on real-world effectiveness, real-world data, on what's being used. We still have sort of samples or panels that tell us which drug is used for what, I think in here, I don't know if the vaccination situation will really play into that, maybe because now we will have these vaccination registers everywhere to track, the performance of the vaccines, the safety and the performance. And that's something I can build on, so that you get the same feedback loop for other medicines, like in cancer, right? And also all this manual, it's a lot of manual stuff going on with Excel sheets and manual checking, outcomes and so on. And here there's a lot we can learn from adjacent sectors. In fact, with the tokenization of payments, stuff like things are just automatically monitored. Okay, this nurse is doing this little work and is part of the outcome. Here's a drug company supplying something. Here's a physician. All these various providers somehow are automatically compensated without sending manual invoices and stuff, and fee schedules and stuff like that. But
we've talked about this at length, Richard, right? I mean, the fact that the compensation for pharma goes through the supply chain and loses about half of its value in that process, right? I mean, this has been a conversation that you and I have had for years. And I mean, this transformation takes time, but, we'll get there, hopefully, in the next decade. We'll start to see some acceleration, in part spurred by this crazy time in which we live. What are some other trends that you expect people in our industry can expect to see in the coming years as we come out of COVID? Well,
you see, I think a renewed understanding for public-private partnerships. I alluded to that earlier. We will have BARDA type programs in Europe and so on, and I would also expect that here in Europe, that European Commission, where the president herself is very passionate about fighting cancer. In fact, this was her top health priority when she took over as Commission president. Now, of course, the pandemic came in and stole a lot of the attention.
No,
rightly so.
Yeah, but, look, cancer was the top priority for everyone, and it took a pandemic to make that a secondary thing. And it's very interesting, given that we're at a company that's focused on oncology, and I think but it's fascinating, but absolutely rightly so, right? We have to solve the problems that are right in front of us right now and do whatever we can as companies, as individuals, to aid in that effort.
And then the other thing I alluded to is collaborative approaches in clinical development, in real world data. That's already underway. And maybe people have been, as I said, been slightly distracted now, both in pharma and payers, because they have to deal with the pandemic. But there was a lot of good momentum on collaborative approaches, some great European Commission programs as well, Eden and others, for mapping real world data sets and making them available. I think that's what's going to happen. Then also we will see a continuation and even acceleration of the whole notion of personalized medicine, targeted precision medicine, where you really focus on the individual and you move from population health to really truly tailoring for each individual. And for that you need to have tools. You need to have tools. I mean, you can even imagine that you have N equals 1, I call it. N equals 1 price negotiations. So I'm a physician and I have in front of me a patient who I'm going to put on some treatment. And I'm going to do let's say it's a combination or it's a subset of something, and there's some list price somewhere, but I don't want to pay that, or my payer doesn't want to pay that. And I can query, I submit a request. It's a bit like the stock markets, I send in a request and say, okay, well, this is what I'm willing to pay for this. And then there's a bit of negotiation and out comes the agreement. I think we will need to move to that with gene therapy, with cell therapy. These new mRNA products now used for vaccines is an amazing technology that could be deployed for so many things. So I think those are the major trends, I would say, Nathan. And then finally, I really hope we get back to a global order with less of geopolitics and free flow of goods across the world. And we can do the things where it makes sense to do them. If you have the smartest people on the other side of the globe, you do that work there. If it's easy to manufacture over here, you do it there. We have a bit of nationalism going on right now, which I hope we can get out of.
Well, no, thanks so much for your time today, Richard. This is
thank you, Nathan.
This is a fascinating conversation. One more question for you. The name of the series is Contingently Committed. What is a contingent commitment that you've made in your life? Personal, professional, anything, family?
I was not prepared for that question. I should have read it before.
It wasn't in the briefing.
Well, you could say relationships are contingent commitments, aren't they?
Yeah.
You can say everything is, trust. In my life, it's always been about trust, about building relationships and trust. Family-wise, only with one person, my wife, since 30 plus years. I guess that was a contingent commitment in the beginning. But even with friends, with colleagues, when I was building relationships between pharma and the payers and regulators, you test each other, you test each other's trust. So many times, I'm not sure you maybe deliberately tested, but every time people tell you something in confidence, if you keep that confidence to yourself and they see that, then they will confide in you again. And all that is somehow contingent commitments. I'm willing to share this information with you implicitly. Don't tell everybody in the whole world. This is only for you. And if you follow that, trust will come.
That's great. Yep. Sounds good. Well, great talking to you, Richard.
See you soon, Nathan.
See you. Bye.